am I up here? Why is some Springfield firefighter up here talking about this? Well, a couple reasons. One, I had 4 kids go through the Springfield school district when there was no plan at all. I was a little concerned about it because we were going to responses in Springfield schools where dangerous situations could have unfolded. But what was the real catalyst for me to start talking about this? It's coffee, actually. I think it was 2012. I was at the National Fire Academy in DC, near DC. And wonderful place, a lot of history. So it's one of the greatest academic experiences I've ever had. It's an old Catholic school turned into this federal university, and they have great classes. I was attending a class. It was a hazmat class, super stressful, one of the hardest classes they teach. I take a test. I'm done with the test, you leave, and you go into the break room. Well, I was done, I'm one of these nerds, right? I enjoy chemistry and stuff. I finish first, and I go to the break room, and in the break room, they have coffee and snacks and such. Well, there's a guy. When I get in the break, one guy, and he's tipping the coffee cooler over like this to get the last cup of coffee. I drink coffee all day. I'm all day, and if I was awake at night, I'd drink it then as well. I see this guy taking the last cup of coffee, and I must have had a cloak of disappointment on my face, because he looks at me and he goes, "You want this cup of coffee?" I'm like, "Hell yeah. Yeah. You don't want it, I will take it." So I take it. Next slide. Yeah. I took a cup of coffee from this dude. I had no idea who he was. I take the cup of coffee and I'm like, "Oh, well, thanks for giving me the coffee. You know, I'm Captain Stagner." And I said, "Well, you know, I'm Chris. Well, so who are you? What's your name? Where are you from? What department you on?" He goes, "My name's Ernie Mitchell." Nice to meet you, Ernie. "Where are you working?" He goes, "I'm the chief of the United States Fire Administration." Chief of the United States. And I took his coffee. Anyways, now I'm in this room, confined with him, and now I got to really create. I got to think myself out of this hole, right? So I do all this small talk and stuff, and I asked a stupid question: "How did you get to be like you?" You know, I was awestruck, and I did ask one serious question by the time we were done chatting. And I asked, "So, Chief, you leave here? You're going to go back to this office, which is in the White House." I said, "What are you working on? What's on your desk?" And he said, "Well, I got to figure out how global warming is going to change firefighting strategies." I silently vomited a little bit in my mouth here. "Well, that's boring. Have fun with that." But then he said, "And the second thing I got to do right away is I got to figure out how to insert you guys and first responders into active shooter situations safely and keep people from dying unnecessarily." He said that to me. And I said, "Right on." Since then, that catalyst, I was recruited by VSP only because I know the guys on the TAC team and things like that. And we did a statewide, New England-wide training on how to integrate first responders and law enforcement into these active shooter situations quicker, more effectively, and efficiently, purely to save lives. Save the lives of those who unnecessarily died. All the deaths are unnecessary, but who died who could have been saved with some simple medical treatment. Okay? There was a gym teacher in Columbine, put a sign in the window, said, "Bleeding, need help." But back then the standard practice was, we don't enter a scene until the scene is safe. It took him 4 hours to pass with that bleed, which would have been survivable with a simple tourniquet. But back then, tourniquets were a no-no. Everybody go to Boy Scouts? Everybody go to Boy Scout? Remember a tourniquet? Get a handkerchief and a stick and twist it around your leg and then open it up and let it go. You know, tourniquets were bad. Not today, as most people are aware. Tourniquets are a good thing. Tourniquets will save lives. That's a different class, but it is a product of everything that we're going to talk about today. Next slide. As we have this discussion, one of the primary results I want to see with my audience is people asking questions. I promise you, there are going to be questions that I will not be able to answer, that the chiefs in the back won't be able to answer. But the point is, you're thinking about them. You're thinking about these questions, which is much better than where we were this morning, where everybody was this morning, right? It's on your forefront of your mind of what am I going to do if? There's going to be all kinds of yeah buts. Yeah, but what if? Yeah, but I have this. Okay, good. Now take some time, think about it, and come up with your own plan, because that's what we all have to do is be responsible for ourselves. Keep this in mind, however. Everybody's going to make a plan, and somebody will have a yeah, but the plan will not be perfect. There's no such thing. But you've got to have something. A halfway decent plan is better than no plan. Okay? And plans will change. I don't know how many trainings I've been to where we have a fire burn building in our FD in the backyard. And I'm going to make up a number. If I make up a number, I'll let you know. If I make up a statistic, I'll let you know. But it'll be to support my point. I'm going to make up a number. 250 fires in this smokehouse, burn building. I might have trained it. These fires that you train in, when we go to real fires, nothing like what we train for. Okay? Every plan isn't going to be perfect, but it's good to have a baseline plan because that's better than nothing at all. Next. So there's many different definitions of what a mass shooting, mass casualty, mass attack is. Depending on the federal government agency, some is 3 casualties, some is 4 casualties. Either way, I'm going to put up a slide here shortly that shows what they consider a mass casualty event. And that definition they use is at least 4 casualties. 4 casualties is somebody injured, does 8 deaths, okay? But at least, it could include death, but it also includes injuries. Next slide. So in October 2025, there's a number that's going to flash up here. How many active attacks have there been since January 1 in 2025, do you think? Which involves 4 or more casualties. Any idea? Throw out a number.
60.
60?
Sure.
The yellow dots represent just places where they've happened. You know, and I don't know what the colored dot means anymore. There's a couple colored ones like the blue, and I forget what that, I never knew Rassel. How about that yellow dot up in the northwest Vermont there, huh? Remember that? We're gonna have a structural collapse here too. Hear the debris falling back here? 602.
All right.
You did have you had most of it. 602 active attacks in the United States since January 1st to end of October. And that can be found on that website. Next. Can everybody hear me okay?
So those are just this year?
Yes. Okay, this is just a simple point. We need to look at the past to prevent some things in the future. Next slide. I'm going to zoom through these just so establish baseline history. Most people already know about a lot of these. This happened in Santa Barbara, California. 14 people, 14 deaths occurred by a vehicle, sword, and a firearm. Next. Orlando, Florida, we all remember this one. 49 deaths, considered an actual terrorist attack. Next. Las Vegas, very recent, 59 deaths, elevated shooter position, horrific, right? Next. New York City, I find this one interesting. New York City, for $19, this guy rented a truck and resulted with 9 deaths driving through crowds. Next. And of course, places of worship or targets. 2017, number of deaths here, bad guy taking out civilian with their own firearm. Next. This is just a quick statistic of where things happen. Places of business is the most common. And recently, like the last 4 or 5 years, open spaces had become number 2. It used to be places of business, schools, then open spaces. But open spaces has exceeded, and then schools is 4th. Or places of business, number 1. Next slide. A lot of people think or believe that the bad person has some type of relationship or is an employee or a student. Most of the time, true or false? What do you think?
Say true.
Matt? A little more than 60% of the time, there is no relationship at all. Coworker is a little less than 20% students. I bring that up because that's what most people think, myself included, before I started talking about this and doing the research. But it's usually just a random thing. Next. This is something I should always keep in mind when we discuss this. And keep this in mind when you're just thinking about your own personal plans. Is what is this attacker thinking? Okay. Obviously not clearly, but their intent is to find the easiest targets, create the most damage in the shortest amount of time. That's their mentality. That's what they want to do. They want to inflict damage, easy targets, and get this over with as quick as possible. Next. Any questions so far? That's just a little bit of it's just to create a baseline of why we're talking about what we're talking about today. We can talk some specific about my own experiences as we go through this a little more. But any questions so far? If anybody has a question, feel free to blurt it out. You can raise your hand if you want, whatever. Inject anytime you want, okay? I'm not gonna have my feelings hurt if you blurt out a question and say, hey, Stag, you can call me Stags, by the way. I did former introduce me. Call me other things if you want, but I prefer Stags. So this we're gonna talk a little bit about, only to make you aware of it. This isn't a yoga class, and I'm not gonna turn everybody into ninjas. Just not gonna be able to do that in the next hour and a half or hour. But this is something where you just need to be made aware of, because there's these things we don't typically think about. And once you're aware of it, it's like, hey, there's this thing called RPDM, recognition prime decision making. Remember that? Recognition prime decision making. Bottom line is, if you don't have a base foundation of training or a base foundation of situations, and you're going to experience something new, or if you're going to experience something out of your wheelhouse, something you're not used to seeing, and you have zero experience, zero thought through the process, that's not a good place to be. Recognition prime decision making means, hey, I was told this once and I thought about it. Boop, boop. A little card goes in your brain as a little file. When something similar pops up, you have something to fall back on and say, hey, I handled it this way the first time I saw this. Now, much better situation to be in. Okay, so this is why I bring this up. There's some good points, and it's stuff we all should be aware of. What we're going to go through in an emergency situation. Next. There are 3 stages that we go through. Next. Denial, which is, we'll talk about that. Next. Amends. So there's denial, deliberation, and then decisive moment. Those are the 3 phases that we typically go through that some psychologists created. I don't know who, but it works and it makes sense to me. I've experienced all of them. Most first responders do. Next. So denial, right? You hear something out of the ordinary. You know, like, what was that? Was that a car backfiring? Or the teachers would often ask, well, how do we know it's not firecrackers? So either way, if it's firecracker or something horrible, they're both bad, right? Either one's bad. Try not to get stuck in the denial phase where, oh boy, nothing's really happening. If somebody else will take care of it. Nobody wants to be the one to call 911. Next. We don't want to stay in the denial phase. Frequently, people would ask this, well, how do I know when I should call 911? It's kind of like, we have a Grove Street in Springfield, very, very steep. You guys got any steep hills in BF, right? Rocking in. Bad snowstorm. You think to yourself, boy, do I want to drive down Grove Street? Or do I want to drive down whatever street might be in this area? To me, if you got to ask yourself, if that question pops into your mind, just don't do it. Right? Because now you're like, oh, risk versus benefit. Okay, if I drive off the edge and... No, if it's already concerning enough that you've got to think to yourself if you should do it, just don't. I kind of relate calling 911 the same way. If you see something goes, boy, should I call 911? Just do it. Don't wait. If you call 911 and we show up, police show up, and there's nothing going on, woo, nice. That's the outcome we want. What we don't want is for people to hesitate and not call 911 when something as bad is going on because they don't want to be the one. Know what I mean? Don't get stuck in denial. Don't be afraid to do something. If you have a gut feeling, you know what a gut feeling is? Gut feelings, scientifically, have been proven to usually be accurate. Comes from the limbic part of your brain that has no means of putting feelings to words, which is why you have a gut feeling, which is being created from some card in your brain that you have, a memory of. Hearing something odd, get back to deliberation. And deliberation is where you finally dig something, make a plan. Okay? Big questions? Pretty straightforward, but we want to get to deliberation. Next. There's just going to be a couple of slides on what to do, what not to do. When I suggest this, or when these slides come up with these specific actions, it's not because it's what they think. The unfortunate situation is there's been enough of these horrible situations that accurate data has been collected to show what works most of the time. Not every time, most of the time. Statistically speaking, most of the time, these actions work, or we know these actions don't work. Hiding and hoping in an emergency situation typically is not the best plan. If you have other options, like leave, remove yourself. Hiding and hoping. I could spend a lot of time on this, but bottom line is doing nothing. Well, I have a coffee cup my firefighters gave me, and it's kind of my mantra since I've been doing this 2012, is make the situation better. You know, my coffee cup says, make it suck less. Sorry. It just says that. Make it suck less. There's only one outcome that can result if you make your situation a little better, is that it gets better. If you make it suck less, only one thing can occur. It gets better. Statistically, hiding and hoping things get better isn't the best action. Has it proven to be okay? It's once in a while, but it's not the best, okay? Hiding hope, hope. I've had, not arguments, you don't argue with your pastor, right? I've had discussions with, what's the difference between hope and faith? Hope is just a little more passive. Faith is a little more actionable. Have faith that you're going to get out of this situation. Have faith that you can move forward. It's more actionable. Okay? Hoping it's going to get better around you just because doesn't usually happen. Next. Playing dead. Again, has it worked once or twice? Yes, it has. Statistically speaking, it's not your best option. Okay, this could be a video of a Virginia Tech. Everybody remember Virginia Tech situation? This could be a video of a student in one of the classrooms where their classroom decided to play dead. Go ahead, next.
We heard the first shots at around 9:40 a.m. I was sitting on the wall of the classroom, so in the hallway, and I could hear the shots getting closer and closer very quickly. I mean, there was only a few seconds between the first time we heard them and when he actually walked in. To me, it sounded like an axe being taken to a piece of wood. And our teacher, she opened the door, and she peered outside, and she immediately shut the door, and she said, call 911. And right then, he walked in just seconds after. There's absolutely no time to think or to duck or to take cover, and people just kind of fell to the floor. And he immediately walked in shooting, and he went to the other side of the classroom, and he started going down the rows. He went down each row very quickly, very purposefully. And I remember thinking, your turn is coming. You're going to get shot. I mean, I didn't realize there was an active shooter, but I knew something bad was happening. He came back to our classroom 3 times, and on the 3rd time, he killed himself in the front of the class. In between each time he was there, you could just hear people crying and coughing, and the cell phone started ringing. When he was in our class, I remember trying not to breathe very much, so you couldn't tell I was alive. Because as my stomach was hitting the chair, I was thinking, you know, he can see me breathing, he can see me alive, and that was very scary. I'll never forget when the SWAT team first broke in at around 9:51. The officer in the front of the classroom said, "We have a lot of blacks in here." And at the time, I couldn't comprehend what he was talking about, but he meant triage codes. And I remember looking into the girl to my right and realizing, you know, what black meant. He looked over me and he said, first he said yellow, and then he changed it immediately and he said red. And that's when I first started panicking. I still couldn't speak. I was shot 3 times, lying on my back, and I remember thinking, what do you see? Like, what can you see on me that I can't, that you would change me from yellow to red? He killed 12 people in my classroom, including our teacher.
Next. This next slide is our next little video is interesting, and It's kind of to get out of the denial phase and get into deliberation, coming up with a plan, being the first to do something. We should kind of think like a gazelle. If, let's say I'm a gazelle. Can you picture me as a gazelle? And I'm grazing. What's my name? Is there any Georges in here? My name is George. George the gazelle. Grazing with my herd, assuming they're called herds, and I see my friend gazelle, Jack. Is there any Jacks in here? Good. Me, George, and my friend Jack over there, he's grazing also. Does a gazelle do this? Go, boy, I think I smell a lion. Nah. Jack, you smell a lion? Jack's gonna stop eating, stick his head up. Nope, I don't smell a lion. Go back to graze. Is that how gazelles act? No. If they smell danger, one makes the decision to take off, and what happens?
The herd follows.
The herd follows. We need to think more along that line in these situations that we feel are emerging. Next.
Like this street in New York City, if you were unfortunate enough to be the victim of a crime or taken ill unexpectedly, you might think that surrounded by all these people, someone would intervene. After all, isn't there safety in numbers? Psychologists say no. Research suggests that often a victim is less likely to receive assistance when surrounded by a group rather than a single bystander. When people are in a crowd, it's easier to pass the buck. It's what psychologists call the diffusion of responsibility. Liverpool Street Station in London, a busy thoroughfare for commuters. Unknown to these passers-by, Peter is an actor. As part of an experiment on bystander apathy, he's pretending to be ill.
Help. Help.
How long before he gets help?
Please. Please. Help. Help, please. Please help.
Helping would be inconvenient or even risky. He lies there for more than 20 minutes and no one raises an eyebrow.
Please, somebody help.
It's always very distressing to watch situations like this where people are obviously suffering and no one's actually helping them. But what we have here is two conflicting rules. One is the rule we ought to help, and the other is the rule that we ought to do what everybody else is doing. And here you have effectively a group of strangers who are exerting the pressure not to intervene, not to help. And it's very difficult to rebel.
Ruth, another actor, takes Peter's place. How long before she receives help? Four minutes later, and 34 people have passed without stopping.
Well, people don't really want to know. They just haven't got the time. But they have got the time, they just don't want to get involved.
Unwittingly, these strangers have silently formed a temporary group with a rule: don't get involved. They're afraid to stand out from the crowd and won't take action if no one else does. This woman has clearly spotted Ruth, but she conforms to the rule and does nothing. Watch what happens, though, when someone else helps.
You alright? You alright?
Yes, thank you.
Sure, you're a little bit flaky, you alright?
She suddenly finds herself in a different group with a new Ruth to help.
Well, sit up. You alright, yeah? Sure.
First I thought she was dead. Then I saw, checked to see if she was breathing or not. And I looked around and I couldn't believe that no one had noticed her because there was a bloke sat there just absorbed in reading the newspaper.
This time, Peter's dressed as a respectable gentleman. Now that his dress is in keeping with those around him, how long before he's rescued?
Hello, sir. How are you today?
I'm alright.
6 seconds. She even calls him sir, and suddenly everyone's a good Samaritan.
Do you suffer from epilepsy?
No.
Why, you're lying on the floor in the rain.
Because he's part of the right group. Everyone wants to help.
I would just hate to be in his position of feeling ill and nobody helping him walking past, so we'd just like to check that he was okay.
And I thought, well, it's wet, so he must really be up for the ruin of suit anyway.
So there's a number of different social things there. Point I want everybody to take home is don't be afraid to be the first to act on what you think is best, to act on what you think to be a safer step to take, or truly trying to help or make a situation better. Don't be afraid to be the first one. Typically, other people will follow. Yeah.
It was interesting, the parallel with the COVID-19 pandemic, because probably 3 weeks before everything shut down, I brought up in my workplace the possibility that that would happen. And it was interesting because there was, people couldn't imagine that that's would be right on the horizon. Sure. I did actually get a lot of support for the idea. And, and then 3 weeks later, as example, did bad organizations and they're paying homes. But it feels like parallel situation where somebody can see something potentially on the horizon. And I think for women who tend to non-trust their gut so much. And so I think, that's just a factor that we have to overcome.
Yep. Yeah, trusting your gut takes a lot of courage to be able to act on that.
Well, there's another dynamic too, is that you're not quite sure what you're walking up against, what you're walking up to, because could it be a trap? Could it be somebody just trying to lure me, or so there's other things. Probably a safety thing would be to call out to them or hit their foot or something like that, but making sure that you're not just going to be bait for whatever they might have.
Mm-hmm. So where's that?
Especially in the city, or by yourself, or being a woman by yourself, or whatever.
Yeah, I think women are a little bit more sensitive to that and more leery if there's all around.
Yep.
Yeah.
One of the first things they do when they talk to anybody who wants to be a first responder, typically the very first day of class, if not the second day of class, is discussing scene safety. Before you intervene, is it safe to do so? And there's classes spent on, things to recognize, potential hazards, risks involved, bloodborne pathogens, all this stuff, right? Yeah, make sure you're safe. That's number one all the time, scene safety. Make sure you're safe before you decide to intervene in any situation. Those are good points. And you don't ever really know. You can always initiate something, and if your gut says back out, then you back out, right? But don't be afraid to approach if you feel it's appropriate to initiate that action, because others will follow is kind of the point of that social experiment. The take home that I want to express. Yeah, good questions. Thank you. Okay. Stress response. I bring this up because, again, it's one of those things most people kind of know, but until you actually think about it, it's not that clear in your mind. So right now, we're talking heart rate, okay, beats per minute. I probably between 70 to 85 beats per minute right now. Somewhere between the white and yellow. All right, now you start exercising, start doing a little something, your heart rate gets up to 120 beats. It's okay, you might start sweating, you might feel it. You're a little fast, a little tacky. But you can still do things, you can still function. When you get up to 150 beats per minute, this is where things start to diminish with yourself. Simple motor functions will be declined. Hey, anybody got a treadmill? Or ever experience on a treadmill? Get on a treadmill, bring your heart rate up to 150 beats per minute, and then try and text. Chances are you won't be able to do it. If you're in a situation you've never been exposed to where there's life hazards involved, what do you think your heart rate's going to be? Think you'll be able to make a phone call? Simple motor functions simple things, movements that you usually have control over, you no longer do at that heart rate in an emergency situation. Now, are you going to be able to fix that? The only way you're going to be able to fix that with is training, and it takes a lot of time to be able to fix that and be able to work in that environment. But just be aware of that, okay? Before your heart rate gets up that high, try and make the situation a little better. Do something. You get up to 175 beats per minute, chances are you'll won't be able to do much at all. You'll potentially lose bodily functions, or control your own bodily functions, and things just get worse. Next. Human brain, next. 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 So you were at fight, flight, or freeze. That's just what people have said since we've been humans. You know, the only reason we're alive today is for our fight or flight response. We still have that within our bodies to fight, you know, to stand up or to run, to the intrinsic thing that we have in our system. Freezing, people say, oh, I'll just freeze. Well, people say that. I've had a number of people tell me, well, if this ever happened to me, I would just freeze. Okay, not the best response, but sometimes it just happens. But now that you know you might freeze, it's just going to reduce the chances of you actually freezing. You might for a minute and say, oh my God, I'm freezing. I should not be doing this. But that's human brain. That's just how it works. Next. The stress response between the fight or flight, when you get into that mode, and your heartbeat starts getting up to 150, you stop thinking clearly. Okay? And one of the perfect examples, situations that shows that fight or flight response, that emergency response system that we have in us will take over, is this incident. Who likes Great White? Who likes 80s rock? All right. All right? Great White. Anybody remember this horrible fire? Yes. Stage, right? Yeah. Yeah. So, Great White is playing here. This is the arena, stage shows. Look at the exits. We got 4 exits. The main entrance is at 1. Entrance hall number 1. That's where everybody who had a ticket went in. Okay? They got a little bar, and they got the main room where the concert goings were there enjoying Great White. Next. Okay, this is a slide this is a video of the event going on. It actually shows the fire starting, how long it takes for the detectors to go off, and it shows how people start to get into this phase of fight or flight and not making good decisions. Okay, next. There's already fire in the back. See it. Smoke. Somebody's pointing it out. Oh, the detector's trying to go off. Full flight response mixed in with a little bit of pain. One is pulling the ringing way out. The point of this case study, there's a lot of things. This has been studied 1,000 times over, I'm sure. But the point I want to take home here is, next slide, please, is using where all the fatalities are. If you see, and people saw 30, 40, 50 people piled up at that door. Why not they just say, hey, I'll go out a different exit? Because if you don't think clearly, when you're in that fight or flight mode, you end up with what they call a herding thing, where people group together and unfortunately don't have a good end. But 31 people that had piled up at the door, and they just kept going because fight or flight, I can make it, I'm gonna make it. Nobody else is gonna make it, but I'm gonna make it. That fight or flight's taken over, common sense or clear thinking doesn't prevail. But you see the herding, 31 at the door, look at the exits, nobody at any other exits. We got 3 there at the main bar still. I'm not sure what happened there. But a horrible event, a lot of case studies, and that's what I wanted to tell you, was fight or flight. The next slide is kind of horrific if you don't want to look at it. Next slide, please. It is the dead bodies. The door. Thanks. We want to get past this denial. We want to get past not doing anything. We want to start thinking of a plan to make things better. And we're going to make that plan. They call it deliberation. Next. All right, so now that something's going on, we're going to try and calm ourselves. This is the part where I kind of said I'm not a yoga instructor, but the point is calm yourself, breathe, shift your emotions, and stay fit. People that respond to emergency situations, first responders, firefighters, and law enforcement officers spend a lot of time with this. We're in emergency situations all the time, and we actually train doing this, breathing, shifting our emotions, and keeping our heart rate between that 100 and 120 beats per minute. Lower if we can. But the idea is you're aware of this. You're aware now that if you're in an emergency situation, a car accident, what have you, do something to try to calm yourself. Next. Deliberation involves planning. Now, I've been coming here, as I said, since I was a child. Does everybody know where the exits are here? Pretty clear, right? It involves planning, knowing your surroundings, situational awareness. Everybody shopping at Leasey's? Where are the secondary exits in Leasey's? Primary exits blocked. Over near the restaurant. That's right. You should be aware of that. Because if something bad's going to happen, it's going to happen typically where the money is. Usually, I don't know about this in Leasey's, but usually, that's by the exit, primary exits. Get your pay and then you leave. If something bad happens, it happens there. We don't want to go through there. There's all kinds of situations, right? Basketball games at the gym, crowds, people coming in. We all go in the same way, typically. Where's your secondary exits? I don't know exactly where they are at Bells Falls High School. I should, but I don't. But I know where they are in Springfield. Situation awareness, make a plan. The other important piece of that is to practice it, if you had the opportunity to. Having done this for quite a while, I've worked with a number of schools of actually performing drills. We had the K's, we had Elk Hill School, K through 3 at the time. And we did an evacuation. We're gonna have the kids go outside. We're gonna have an active attacker event and had the kids go outside. The teachers are gonna do their thing. We trained, we planned, we did a tabletop, then we did the exercise. It's like, well, why do you gotta do all that? The exercise, the actual practice, you've learned so much. The kids had a blast going out the windows. They loved it. But we learned a couple things. One of the best things we could do is put a chair out the window. Where the kids can jump from the windowsill onto a chair and then they take off. Never would have found that out if we didn't actually do it. When we did the reunification piece, because we reunified at Elm Hills, Riverside Middle School. They set up, we had all the materials, the planning was there, the tables, the lists, the attendance sheets, everything was there, it was perfect. But we planned for that for a couple years. And then all the tools are there. So parents start coming, kids are starting to leave. They break out the markers and the pens. Not one of them worked because they sat there for so long. We never would have found that out if we didn't actually practice. You got to script and you got to practice if you can. Actually do it. Bellows Falls just had an awesome drill. Westminster had the ice. We trained, and then we actually did it. You learn a lot. It's what you learn the most when we actually do it. Next. Fire inverters in schools, right? We gotta do one at least every month. When was the last time somebody died from a fire in a school? Looks like Park Street, doesn't it? 1958. My Lady of Angel School. 1958. 92 K through 8th graders died in that school. Since then, there hasn't been a single fatality in a school due to a fire. Why? Because they drill it every month. They've made changes. Fire drills are, posters up, the red line, they go out there, attendance is done, it's timed, and then it's a wonderful thing. All kinds of rules and laws came about because of this fire. People always talk about wood chocks, right? The door chocks. Division of Fire Safety has a fit when there's door chocks. The school has it. That law that rule came from this fire of not using door chocks in schools. Because doors were propped open that allowed smoke and gases in, which is why most of those children passed. Not because of fire, but because of smoke and gases. That being said, when was the last time we had an active attacker in a school? But it resulted in fatality, right? Already. How many times are we drilling for those events? Hardly ever. Hardly ever. Next. Any questions up to anything that I've said? Ideas, thoughts to this point? So active attack response. This is where we get into, okay, we're going to deliberate. Now we're going to take that decisive action. We're going to actually do something. Next. Run, hide, fight. Synonymous wording is avoid, deny, defend. You could use either, like as I said, Department of Education supports run, hide, fight. Now you can hear other schools do other things. It's okay. Okay, there's the ALICE program, which is I think is the second most common in the state of Vermont. Most people follow the Department of Education suggestion. Most schools. But they don't have to. If they want to do something else, they can as long as it's close to that program. For civilian response, does everybody here work for a big facility, Shaw's or a manufacturing plant or a big public building or anything other than a school? Is there, how many educators? If you don't mind. So we have a couple schools. But if you're in the grocery store and something bad happens, these are the things we're going to want to act on. These are the actions we're going to want to take. And what's great about this is everybody, when I say everybody, the first responders, law enforcement, fire personnel, ambulance agencies, are going to expect this response when something bad is going on. We're all trained with it. Avoid the situation if you can. Deny or defend. We'll talk about each one. Next. I'm not going to show this video because I don't like it. Next. Next. Avoid. Leave. Know your exits. Call 911. Okay, it's simple, right? Avoid, avoid, avoid. Run, 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 it sounds fine, it sounds a little hectic. I kind of prefer the word avoid. It sounds like a more planned exit response, but the idea is run, hide, fight, run. Remove yourself from the situation. Majority of the time, I'm gonna make up a number, 89% of the time, you can resolve the situation, make it better by just leaving. Okay, I made that number up. But my point is, usually, statistically speaking, just leave and everything gets better. But to do that, you have to know your exits. Yes.
Out the exits.
Yep. I'm sorry.
I need to remember the window on a ground floor is a very suitable exit. Like I'm thinking in my building and like, oh, I'm gonna go out into that hallway where there may be something bad happening. When I can just go out the window. If you have exit sign is pointing to doorways, a window is a good exit.
A window, yeah. See, and that's the exact line of thinking I want to end as a result here is options, right? If something bad is happening here, what's your next option? Is a window. Window's a perfect exit.
I watched a thing on Columbine, and they said that some of the kids died because the windows were open and they didn't go out them.
There's a case study we'll review that showed that even the second story window, kids jumped and they all survived. Where the neighboring classrooms, they stayed and hid, and it was a horrible result. Just did this at Weathersfield School. There's a lot of discussions there about how to get people out windows.
I think that's where the practice goes in, because that when the woman's right easily.
Land over your desk.
As you said, your heart rate is high, fumbling and shaking, and so actually practicing all your windows.
Got to do it.
In our office where we work, I actually up in Murray, because we're in a long building where our windows are right on the sidewalk and they're large, and I sometimes can picture someone just being outside, not even coming in the building, and just walking down the sidewalk, then, shooting boost the windows. Yep. And so I think what's uncomfortable is actually just kind of imagining different scenarios of what they're going to do and how they get conversation. So
You're right.
that's why we're here to kind of get over that discomfort, because I think we do need to do that in order to practice, in order to imagine, so that if, God forbid, the moment ever came, it's not like brand new information that you never even thought of.
No, you're exactly right. You don't want to not even be aware, because that's not a good place to be when. If you notice, I've been using the term active attacker kind of mixed into all of this. It's because even the government agencies, your FEMA, Homeland Security, et cetera, are using that term more frequently than just active shooter, only because it takes a little bit of the political stuff out of it, but it's not just firearms that are causing a lot of this damage. As you saw in the slides, there have been a number of knives, vehicles, there's a number of tools being used. So the actual titles of a lot of these become active attackers, because you just start knowing where, unfortunately. Yeah, no, good points.
Well,
Yeah.
some things too are like learned, I don't know, as we mature or whatever, because I remember years ago we had a fire in the barn and we lost our livestock, and one was left alive, and I was in a panic mode, and my boyfriend at the time said, "Get over it, those are dead, we have to deal with this one." And then later on, I was involved with, there was a car accident, and I reacted, and the people there thought I was a first responder, and I'm like, no, I'm a mom, and these kids needed help. And it just was but it's like you develop after time and probably just from being in different circumstances.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, experience that stress level, and managing it is what you do better after the experience. But just being exposed to it and then taking that in and keeping that card in your brain is what's going to make you function better if the unfortunate situation occurs again. So avoid. Leave and everything gets better. Next. Serious situation. We have some horrible thing going on. And we had this poor person there in the corner. Can you see that kind of black coat? So something bad's going on through those open doorways where it says camera 13. To avoid, I mean, I believe there's a number of options. You guys see the options there? Ladder. The ladder. How about I out the door? I don't know where that door goes, but you just go off the door. Next. There we go, doorway next. The ladder next. 4. So that's your avoid. That's the whole point of avoiding. Okay. And if you're in a building, if you're in a commercial building, a public building, like wherever, we need to practice for your avoid or actually do it. Because that's where you'll learn. That's where you get some experiences and gain some knowledge of what tools you might need in the future. That says hide or deny. If you can't avoid, if you feel that your life is in danger of leaving where you're at or of going in your normal exit pattern, the next best action to take would be to deny access. Don't allow the bad person or the bad person to get to you if you can. This is where in schools we have teachers and students block the doors, slide desks up, do whatever. Deny access to yourself, and then let's look at secondary exits. Do you have windows? Can you have adjoining classrooms? Maybe you can get out a different way. But that's a decision that we need to make. If you can't avoid, deny access. People, a common question is, well, if somebody's got bad and they got a gun, then they're gonna just push the door open, even with desk and stuff, and then or they'll shoot it, and then they'll go. Statistically speaking, that doesn't happen. Remember the mentality of the bad person. They want to inflict a lot of damage with easy targets as quickly as possible. They're not going to fight one door. They're going to move on, statistically speaking. Yes.
You might peek into the stairs, so if you are, just tell me. At some point, I would love to hear on the best practices of how to bring this back to an organization and talk about it, because it is very triggering, it's stressful, and yet it needs to pursue that to prepare. So that's something I would address sometimes.
Well, I can answer that now. There's a couple of options to have people speak just like I'm speaking at any business in town, in Springfield, or in this area. I've done this all over New England, whether it's a school, manufacturing plants. If you have a business that's interested in this talk, or something along the lines of this, catered specifically maybe to the building, then that can be arranged. I would reach out to your local police chief or fire chief, and definitely work with you on a plan and have the discussions. So lock the door if you can, lights out, get out of sight is the best practice for denying. If we can't avoid, we want to deny access. And think about this when you're in these places. If you're in your office or wherever, look in your office, say, hey, if I can't get out and I got to block my door, what could I use? There's a number of things you could try. File cabinet, a table, just something to slow the bad person down, make him change his mind and go someplace else. Next. Okay, barricading doors, nice picture of it. I get it. People will say, well, that's not going to stop anything. No, but it's going to cause a struggle. And typically, something like this will change their actions, the bad person's actions. There's a next. I'll get into other devices. So in this same situation, there's a number of things this person potentially could try next. Unsure what that is exactly, but could move that from the door. Next. Maybe those racks or shelving units. Next. simple door stops. These are the chalks that we don't like in schools, right? But in your house, in your office, things like that is fine. Is that fine in public buildings? Chief? Are door stops allowed in commercial buildings? As long as not fires. Right. Next. So this person is actually using a bell around a door handle to keep somebody from coming in. I've actually tried that. It's hard. It's a very hard. Look at that guy. I got Jack too, right? But it's not an easy thing to do. But the idea is he's trying something. But if that is a plan, make sure you try it before you need to use it, because you'll hear exactly what I'm talking about when you try that plan. Ropes, tension sleeves, things of that sort. Next. This is the mechanical device. So this slideshow, just a little side note, is created by Texas A&M. So some of these things in here didn't come from me. Visualize some of the things in here aren't necessarily appropriate for this geographical area. This, I know, is not allowed per fire code. Okay, this is a little mechanical locking device on the inside of a doorway. So before you invest in something for your business or where you work, make sure it meets fire code. And these are very expensive, and I know places that put them in and had to get rid of them. But there's a number of things out there that are available. Next. So, defend and fight. Now, nobody's advocating that you fight, which is why I don't necessarily care for the term. The point is, that I like to make is everybody has the right to defend themselves. How you do that is completely up to you. I am not going to recommend anybody goes and fights these people or fights the bad person. That's law enforcement's job. That's their primary task. And they will perform that task. Next. But this guy takes a good bottle of wine. Something bad is obviously happening to the left. And he's going to take care of the situation, which he does. Now, don't be the poor woman in the back. I feel bad for her. I like playing dead, okay? That's what, not the best action to take. But she did something. Next. Avoid equals run, deny, hide, and I've said that over and over again. And that's the whole premise of this presentation and the actions that we should take to statistically make our outcomes better. Next. Next, a bunch of times until this algorithm is done. If you can't hear what I said, this is a nice algorithm. It explains it perfectly. Next. So this slide I added, what you do matters. We have the possibility, we have the potential to make things better by following this program. I put in options-based because options-based is kind of a new term. The Department of Education has required our schools to perform what is called options-based drills. 3 or 4 years ago now, I can't remember exactly, but relatively recently. Before, it was just do fire drills, which was fine, which is good. But the point is at the exit of every door, there's that nice little layout of the building and follow the red dots. Go to your meeting area, accountability, click the timer, successful. Now, it's like, okay, a real emergency, you can't follow those red dots anymore. We actually have to think and make a decision. Some people find it very liberating that they're not just told to go this way. Like, all right, emergency going on, I can do this. and I know I can do it well. Other people don't find that so liberating. Some people find that very stressful because it does inherently create some responsibility for that person. Right? It's like, oh my God, now I got to make the decision. I don't think an educator's program that they go to at college trains them on how to respond to an emergency situation. How much of their curriculum involves that? Probably not. Should it nowadays? But anyways, so the Department of Education has stated that 2 times a year at least, you will have an options-based drill in a school. In other words, you can pull the fire alarm and you won't be able to leave your normal way. That's awesome, I believe. I think that's the way it should be. Some people don't think so. Next. Virginia Tech. So, avoid, deny, defend. There are thousands of case studies with this horrible event. The takeaway I want from for this presentation, nothing about this. The takeaway I want you to have is each room that the bad guy entered an attack did something different. They acted differently. And the outcomes are, I'll show you what the outcomes are. This is Virginia Tech. Next. Next. That's the actual hall. This is the actual hallway. Next. And these are the rooms. Bad guy comes in next. Okay, goes into room 206 first. Reds are fatalities. Yellow is casualty. And green is unharmed. So he goes to 206 first. All the surrounding rooms are obviously listening and hear something going on. Next. Crosses the hall. They attempted to block the door. Okay? Fewer fatalities, fewer casualties, 2 unarmed. Next. Then he goes to room 211. Room 211 is where that, that student that we saw the video, she was in 211. 211 was unlocked, open, and everybody was playing dead. Everybody was hiding under the desks because that was what they were taught at the time. 100% casualties. Everybody in that room was injured. Next. Shooter then goes to this room where the instructor and a student blocked the door. They were denying. At the same time they were denying, they decided to bail out the second-story window. Unharmed or outside, few casualties, 2 fatalities. It's one teacher and 1 student who blocked the door. But he left. The shooter left, went back to 211 for the second time because it was the easiest targets. Shooter leaves 211. Next. Next. And tries to get into 205. Next. Okay, completely denied. Now you wonder, well, why didn't they go out the window? They didn't go out the window because their windows were all nailed shut. However, they denied access completely, no casualties at all in that room. Because he couldn't get into that room, he went back to 211 for a 3rd time because it was the easiest place, and that's where everything ended. He took some more lives and took his own. But these are the actions, right? So you have complete denial, you have avoid in 204, denial in 205, and defend, right? There's so much into this event, and I don't want to take away of all the other things that this event was discovered during this event. That's why I only want us to look at the results of those 3 actions in that light. Yes?
Time-based some sort then. Well,
Time?
Because my colleague here was saying that people to a bike had some time to react.
and sick. And the first people where there are most casualties really happened.
Right. 206, they were like, that's where it started. Exactly right. Yep. Yeah, 205 had enough time to realize that their windows were locked. And then they said, all right, well, we can't get out. We're going to deny.
So it is interesting that this scene, those tribal, what you're saying in terms of like the easiest, fastest.
Yeah.
We had been hacked because at 206 gears that he just locked in, spray everybody and walk out.
Yeah.
Human gone, and as opposed to staying there and see every last person.
Yep. And the other challenge, which allowed this bad person more time than usual, is that he locked all the entrance doors and chains and locks. So law enforcement and other people had a harder time entering the building. Yeah, like I said, there's a lot to this, but
That's one of the things I thought of when you showed that metal lock thing, because I'm thinking, okay, that's going to keep the bad guy out, but now you need help.
yeah,
And help can't get in.
right. Yep. So there are disadvantages to some of the stuff. Next. Next. Police response time. What do we think our police response time is to an emergency here? Well, did he just leave? Did Chief Bemis just leave? Yeah. Sure, his part comes up and he takes off. Cops. I can say that from the fire. About 3 minutes in town, maybe. What, you're up in Mount Holly or somewhere like that in Vermont? I think it could be 20 before law enforcement shows up. But this area is typically not 3 minutes in this part of Vermont. It's just, that's out of the ordinary. This is a national average. But you're talking like Boston, New York City. I do know, I've been involved with at least three real events that involved firearms or weapons in public schools. And I know as soon as that alarm goes off and the first radio communication is heard that there's something bad, it's cold in here, isn't it? That's right. See, it's big. I still feel it. I know for a fact that every law enforcement officer, every sheriff, state police, town officer, game wardens, postal cops, they're all coming, whether they are told to or not. They will self-dispatch to any area that has something horrible going on. And that's a good thing. It's got to be managed by us, but it's better than no response, right? Next. So law enforcement. Just a real quick, Columbine, nobody entered the school until it was deemed safe or until the appropriate number of law enforcement officers or the appropriate tactical teams showed up. Just a practice set. That's how it worked. It took 6 hours to deem that building safe for first responders to go in and treat. Okay. Today, that's not the case. Majority of all law enforcement agencies nationally are trained to go in and to stop the bad person from doing anything else as quickly as possible. Whether it's one person or two or three, they're not going to wait. They're going to go in and take care of the bad person as quickly as possible. That's what's trained, and that's how they're trained. That's what they're teaching at the police academy. To end the hurt and the horrors from occurring or continuing on. That's their job. Next. But yeah, also just, this has changed only because this recently happened in Springfield. Anybody in a business, in a school, anywhere in reality, if you hit the alarm, if you hit that button, if you make that phone call, they're going to respond quickly, aggressively. 70 Union Street School, the secret button was hit, right? Saying something bad is going on here. And they responded. They don't respond with their cars and zip through the locks and, say, hey, we heard, did you guys hit your alarms? That's not how you respond to an emergency situation with a hit the alarm. You respond to protect yourselves and take care of the incident. Not knowing what the incident is, but you're prepared for every incident. When we go to a smoke investigation, we don't bring, a car, the fire department car, and just look at the smoke and, oh, geez, I guess it is a fire. Maybe I better get a fire truck. No, we respond to fire trucks, we respond to take care of anything and everything. Law enforcement is going to do the same, which means don't be surprised if they come with the fully armed and tacked up to take care of any situation. Because that's what they're going to do. As they should. Because they don't know what's going on. And that was a surprise. Okay, crisis teams, all kinds of stuff was a result of that because nobody was expecting it. And it's just more training. Shame on us for not actually expressing that to everybody, that if you do hit this button, this is what you're going to see. Thankfully, that's what we're going to see. Because that's what we want. Anyway, when the police arrive, follow the command. Knowing what's going on is a desire, not a right. Don't ask questions if they don't have time to answer them. Show your palms, don't move. Just follow the church. Just follow there. Remember, these guys are responding to a situation that could be, they're thinking, might be the worst day of their lives. And that's what they're prepared to take care of. So their mentality is going to be, might be a little aggressive. They train for these situations just like we train for fires. I can tell you, I still get jacked up when there's a fire. To me, it's exciting. But, same thing for law enforcement officers. They're prepared to do something that hopefully they never have to do. So just follow our instructions. It's the best advice I can get. Next. Are you ready? If you're not cool, I'm not walking with you. Sir? Just go across. Lots of that, just you gotta keep your hands right and see him. For I always said that. You're gonna make your left with it, just be out. Thank you. Try to relax. Everyone try to relax. I'll take the bullet before you do, that's for damn sure. Just be cool, okay? Next. Medical. Things have changed in the medical field as well. As I talk about some of this stuff, I'm going to kind of cruise through it just so you know what's going on. What I want you to know, though, is that the fire departments locally, the ambulance services locally, the schools locally, and when I say locally, I'm talking like southern Vermont, most of Vermont. I've done this up in Burlington and Essex, the same speak. But know this area, just a couple months ago, we did an awesome drill at the high school. The training in this area is far beyond many places that I've been to. The fire department, the ambulance services, the fire departments have invested in this training, and they've invested in the equipment to appropriately respond to what I'm about to explain. Not only have they invested in it, they're trained up to do it. Who'd have thought when I first joined the fire department that I'd have a bulletproof vest as part of my gear? Never thought of it. Never thought it would happen. Anyways, training for EMS, no delay. Just as law enforcement is going to go in right away and take care of the situation as quickly as possible because that's their job, that's their primary function. The backup team's going to go in now and provide medical treatments right away with the proper protection. These people have to have the protective gear and the training to be able to do that. And that exists here in most of this area in Vermont. Most people don't know that. Most people don't know that fire departments invested thousands of dollars in ballistic gear to be able to perform this training, or to perform this function. So training, EMS no delay, people need help, seek additional training, which has all been done here. You see, just a real quick point on this picture. This is, anybody know where that's from? Yeah, it's Boston Marathon, yep. That guy with blue hat on is an ER doc, trauma doc from Dartmouth. He is doing what's appropriate. There's a wound, right leg. He's applying pressure and has man-made a tourniquet. Okay, he has man-made tourniquet. Didn't have a real mechanical one. Commercial. Saved this person's life by doing this. If he had a real tourniquet, not a man-made tourniquet, not a handmade tourniquet, but a commercial style tourniquet, he could have put that tourniquet on, and then he could have got up and treated somebody else. But once he created that tourniquet, he had to maintain it because they need maintenance over time. Which is unfortunate. You know, it's hate to use a resource like that just to maintain that tourniquet. Bottom line is tourniquet, tourniquet, tourniquets. People always ask me, well, how many tourniquets do I need to keep? I have, this is going to be relatively accurate, 25 tourniquets between my ambulances. People ask me, is that enough? I hope so. Boston Marathon, they had cases of, was that enough? Nope. Tourniquets are in almost every go bag in the schools. School teachers are trained to use them. That's awesome. Next. Well, I'm not going to get into this. This is probably for schools. Lockdown just isn't enough. Next. Next. All right, now think about these situations. This looks like Springfield, green, white, looks like a gym. We might not have as many championship flags, I don't know. Right? But anyways, you're in this situation, something bad happens, where are you going? You've all been to places like this, probably. Next. This looks like Dartmouth Hospital almost. Next. You find yourself in these situations, Matt. You find yourself in those situations, take a look around, take that time to think about your eggs. Just make that plan, initial plan in your mind if something's about to happen. This is the Stop the Bleed program, a byproduct of all of this going on. Stop the Bleed is training. You train on how to use tourniquets, and it's ready, available to my adult schools and done it. But it's rarely available to any citizens. But next, personal issues, obviously. So I did a thing about these incidences, and they asked me, well, when does the incident end? If horrible, when's the incident over? When does it end? What was that?
Never.
That's
You're
right.
going to live with it.
It never ends. It never ends. It will always be brought up. It will always be remembered. And a plan, an actual plan to memorialize and remember these events has to be made and followed.
Fortunately, there are plenty of resources out there nowadays for us to seek the help you.
Next. We don't name the bad people anymore. Next. Next. Yeah.
These are people that have decided to take actions at ended up being heroes. Next. Next. She's the one that actually stopped the shooter as any of. Next, so gym teacher, math teacher. Next. Next. She also took out a dead person. Next. Next. Any questions at all? Next. Next. And a slideshow. And exit. Play. Hey! So, avoid, deny, defend, run, hide, fight. Pretty straightforward. Any questions at all about what we talked about?